Natwampane
Ayayaya Tuvwange
Ayayaya Natwampane Ayayaya.
Hello again and welcome to the 8th conversation in the series of talks that we've been having around the global minimum standards, and we're talking about GBV programming, response and prevention. My name is Wale Malama. I'm coming in from GIZ, and with me today I have Bob. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob is coming in from the National Prosecution Authority as the Senior State Advocate under the Gender-Based Crime Department. Welcome once again, and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be here to discuss our responses to gender-based violence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Bob, as you mentioned, you're happy to be here to respond to the issues around gender-based violence and the legal aspects. Mm-hmm. So, I would just like to hear from you. What is it that you are working around in the legal department? What is the mandate that you have as a prosecution authority and in relation to GBV?
Okay, so start with generally, the National Prosecution Authority is a statutory body.
Yeah.
And it's established under its own Act of Parliament, the National Prosecution Authority Act.
Okay.
The institution stems from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, which is a constitutional office that has the mandate to undertake all prosecution in the country.
Okay.
So the DPP is that's the name that everybody knows. The DPP is in charge, or is the one that has the power to start, stop, and finish the prosecution against anybody. So the institution that supports the office of the DPP is called the National Prosecution Authority.
That's where you
and
come
that's
in.
where I'm from. Yes.
Okay.
So that is our mandate.
Okay.
But in relation to GBV, if I can continue,
absolutely,
is that
please.
We do take offenders to court. We prosecute them, which is to bring evidence against someone who has been accused, suspected of something, and then we bring the evidence before a court. Okay. Yes, whether it's a magistrate or a judge. And then we allow the courts to make a decision, which is just. Okay. So in relation to GBV, the NPA has a specialized department. It's called the Gender-Based Crime Department. Okay. That's the department in which I'm attached to. Okay. Yes, and we do gender-based violence prosecution. And then we also do awareness on gender-based violence. We go to schools, we speak to colleges about gender-based violence. We also do sensitization on the law relating to gender-based violence. We also do trainings. We do a lot of trainings with our stakeholders, working partners, including the Zambia Police and also the doctors at the one-stop centers. On how to handle GBV cases. So as part of our main duty, which is to prosecute offenders, we also do the other things around GBV, which is to sensitize and to create awareness.
It sounds very much more interactive than we usually assume. Yes. You know, when you see you in the courtrooms and when we see you, representing the various cases coming in. So it's good to learn that it's more than just, it's beyond the courtrooms. It goes to even advocacy, community sensitizations, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. Are you able to provide us with a legal framework of the GBV proceedings, for example? If a case comes in and it's a GBV case, are you able to run us through how exactly the legal framework that is existing
around the GBV area? Yeah. Okay, so I'll speak specifically or rather particularly to prosecution.
Absolutely.
And the primary framework that we use as prosecution is the Penal Code. And the Criminal Procedure Code. These two, those set out most of the GBV offenses you'll find in Zambia. And the Criminal Procedure Code sets out the process, the way in which we prosecute our matters in court. You just don't go there and start shouting, oh, John, Mary, Joseph, what? There's a process in which you use. So that's what the code helps us with. So in the Penal Code, you will find the offenses Unfortunately, common offenses like defilement,
Yeah.
which is popular
Quite
for the wrong reasons.
unfortunate, absolutely.
Yes, and the rape, assaults, incest, all those are the cases that are found under the Penal Code as GBV offenses.
Okay.
So those are the primary ones for us.
Yeah.
But also, in addition to those, there are other laws that have been which have been passed, which assist in the fight against GBV.
Okay.
Primary among these is the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act,
Yeah.
which was passed, I believe, in 2011. Yes. This act has provisions, or maybe let me talk about the other act. Is also the Gender Equity and Equality Act.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, that one is also part of the fight against GBV. I think it speaks for itself that it encourages equality in workplaces, and it also outlaws harassment.
Yeah.
So, in relation to criminal proceedings,
Yes.
which is taking a suspect of GBV to court,
Yes.
it's the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, obviously the Constitution, but everybody wants to put the Constitution in everything. So, then, but the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act is also a very unique and important act for us in the fight against GBV. Now, number one, it sets out what GBV is.
Okay. Yeah. It defines clearly.
Where, if you are not sure if this is a GBV, you go to the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act and you'll be guided. It talks about what kind of relationships people can have that if a conflict arises in that relationship can be called GBV.
Okay.
For example, married, having a child with another baby mama drama. Yes, that's also, it's there. It's all there. So that's the primary thing.
Okay.
So the second thing is that it also gives the rights of a survivor on reporting. Under the what I would call the normal way of doing things, if something happens to you in Osaka, you are supposed to report it in Osaka to the police.
And that's like the normal standard.
But the Anti-GBV Act removes that
kind of
requirement. Yes, because you understand, maybe you might have to leave where you are, but still have to report the crime. So you have those rights that are enshrined. Also rights to protection by police officers, the right to be assisted if you have property left over somewhere by the police officer. And there are so many other rights in relation to the victim that are set out there. Then in addition to that, and maybe most important now, is that it also sets out what are known as protection orders and occupation orders. This is commonly known maybe out in other jurisdictions as restraining orders.
Restraining, okay.
Yes. So this is in a situation where if you are a victim of gender-based violence and you feel like the danger to you or the irritation to you is current and you want it to stop, and it might not be able to stop until for you to wait for the court process to be done for it to stop. You can get an interim order, a temporal order from the court, which will stop the other person from doing certain things. There's a whole list of things that they can't call you, they can't come within 100 meters of you, they can't even, there's a where they can't go to places that you usually frequent. So if you like having your ice cream somewhere, you can put in the order that they shouldn't be coming here to have ice cream.
I see.
So it's an interesting act, and you don't need to have a criminal matter reported for that to be used, or for you to use it to help you. We do at the National Prosecution Authority assist our victims get protection orders, but for those who have not reported matters, you can still go and get a protection order from the court. It's free. And it's almost immediate.
It's free.
It's free. You're just walking into the subordinate court registries. They do have someone there who is supposed to help you. To give an example, is if the suspect was harassing you and you started, you reported a case against them, and he stopped after you reported.
Yeah.
And then when we call our first witness, he starts again. At that point, you can still get a protection order to stop him from harassing you for the duration of the court. And to breach a protection order or restraining order, it cause sanctions.
Yeah.
Yes, the court will find you in contempt, and you'll be jailed for at least 3 months.
Oh wow.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So there is
Immediately.
there is no, because you're in contempt. So the contempt, they'll just call you and say, okay, why did you do this? If you don't have a reasonable explanation, then you're gone. Yeah. So, but yes, so the protection orders are helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another type of protection order, which is called an occupation order.
Yeah.
This one is usually used for situations where persons are married. Yeah. So if your perpetrator, whether it's a wife or usually the case the husband, you can evict them from the house. Okay. So the occupation order gives you occupation of the matrimonial home, and then the other person can leave the house for the duration of the case. So in that period, the order still allows the person, if it's a house which you pay rent, they'll still be paying rent. If it's a mortgage, yes, they'll still be paying mortgage, and up until the point in which either the order expires or the case is dealt with.
Great. That's a good piece of information. I think it's important that would-be perpetrators and survivors and victims are aware of this information. I guess it's important for us to know that. I guess it also helps to curb the issues of the survivor going back to the would-be dangerous environment where they risk being re-abused or worse.
Yes, or worse. Yes, usually that's the case when, unfortunately, with GBV cases, is they start off as an assault, and you might find yourself in a more final situation.
Thank you so much for that. So the good part, would you have an analysis of the challenges, for example, or the gaps that you have been facing as an expert in the legal aspects of relating to cases of GBV? It's the good part.
We're talking about problems.
In a good way.
I don't know whether I should start with myself, like us as on the institutional part, or maybe I should start with the victims also, or the people. But maybe to begin with, I think the primary challenge from our end as a prosecution in dealing with GBV is not to throw anyone under the bus, but we do have generally investigative challenges in this country for cases generally, and more specific to GBV. Of course, these are challenges that are not specific to any institution, but or individuals. But at times it's difficult to gather evidence, to analyze certain evidence. For example, because of the size of the country, also if you are in one of the rural area, it might be difficult to analyze maybe if there's a venereal disease, an STD that has been passed on. It might be difficult to get to that. It might be difficult to have certain equipment, medical equipment, known as a colposcopy.
And colposcopy for me who doesn't know.
which they use it to examine mostly female victims for signs of sexual violence. So you may not have these facilities in certain areas, and it's difficult for the investigators to gather the evidence required to prosecute a matter. So we have a rise in child defilement cases, and the nature of GBV is that it's a very intimate, unfortunately, that's the lack of a better term, intimate offense. And it usually has no witnesses except the victim and the perpetrator, especially when you're dealing with children and defilement. And our inertia, or the way we don't have a quick or DNA lab, it really hampers the prosecution of some of these cases, especially when you have to do with defilement, because we know the DNA evidence is definitely there on the victim, of the suspect. We know the suspect has the DNA of the victim on him or her. So the inability to get results of that DNA in good time, it really does hamper us.
Yeah.
Also, I think one of the other challenges generally is the withdrawal of cases.
And this is from usually the victims and survivors.
Yes. It's really quite high. We really get a high number of withdrawals. Some cases, you find the case is withdrawn even before it reaches the court.
Yeah.
It's we have survivors are always talking about
intimidated, perhaps. Could they be?
Yes. And unfortunately, some of them are intimidated into withdrawing matters. Some of them are pressured by society and especially women. Even men or women, especially with society and culture, especially if it's a marriage, you're supposed to keep the marriage and you can't take your husband to jail. But also men, they are pressured to say, but you are crying. This is a form of crying. What are you crying about? You've even gone to court just to, cry about this thing. So there are those pressures that you find people are always writing letters. No, I've reconciled. I'm a Christian. Please withdraw this case, and this is a large majority of cases.
Absolutely, given that we're a larger Christian nation, so if most withdrawals are based on Christianity, I can assume
reconciliation. Yes, so we have a large number of withdrawals, and it is a challenge because it creates the impression to would-be offenders, to use the term you used, and other people out there, that you can do something like that and not get punished.
And you get away with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
People tend to withdraw matters for those reasons, also economic reasons. Usually the perpetrator is a breadwinner. Yeah. So now if you have 3 children with him, he's the one who pays the school fees. He's the one who is paying also maybe your sister's school fees and your brother's maybe university fees. And then you're taking him to jail, which means you'll be fired from his job and your family will suffer. So those are the pressures that people go through and they withdraw. And the impression that goes to the communities, well, if you beat them, you can give the family money, they withdraw. You can beat this one, they'll give, you can reconcile in church, they withdraw. You can defile that young girl and you go and pay the family damage and withdraw. And that's a form of reconciliation that leads to withdrawals also. So we that is a challenge that is ongoing for us at the NPA. And also another challenge that we do have is skill, really. We've learned over time that you have to use new ways to deal with newer things. You have to be a bit more savvy than just the old ways of calling witness, because now we have new offenses that didn't exist in the time when the penal code was being enacted. We have offenses that can happen entirely on Facebook, on WhatsApp. Those are not envisioned. So our skill set needs to grow as the NPA. In relation to prosecuting such type of offenses, but also our sensitivity might sometimes also be a problem, and because gender-based violence victims are different from victims of other offenses, because the trauma they suffer is very different. It is very different, and you, I mean, if someone steals from you. It's almost impossible for me to re-traumatize you just by talking about, how did your pen get stolen? But if someone commits an offense of GBV on a child, just us talking about it again is re-traumatizing, reliving the entire experience. And if you are not sensitive in the way you go about your work, you might leave the victim more damaged
You do more harm
yes,
than
than
good.
they came to you.
Yeah.
So we do need sensitivity in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those are some of the main challenges really. Yeah, investigative and also with the withdrawal process
Yeah.
as well, and sensitivity. Ourselves, not saying we're not sensitive, but
But we need
we can
to
be better.
We can be.
Yeah.
It's always good to acknowledge that we can be better, because the beginning of change is when you continuously accept to grow.
Yes.
I think it's the best way that we can handle any situation in life. So thank you so much, Bob, for highlighting those gaps and concerns for us. And speaking of gaps and concerns, do you already have some ideas of ways you could overcome? For example, you were talking about how cases would be withdrawn. Could that then speak to the existing fast track courts that are in place?
Yes. So yes, there are a couple of solutions that are already in place, and they are working well. One of them we've alluded to, of course, is fast track courts to withdrawals. How it works for the fast track court is that the longer the case takes, the more likelihood of certain other things coming into the case. Like we like to say, coloring the case.
Yeah.
To change the case from white to black. So the quicker the matter goes from beginning to end, you have a shorter time frame for things like pressure to withdraw, pressure, monetary pressure, and etc. You can go from 0 plea to conviction in a month or less, and that's good. Because now if your matters take 3 months, 6 months, there's a lot of time now for people to fall back in love. And start saying, no, we've forgiven each other, and then the next time they come, there's another assault, and it goes on and on. So that is one of the solutions to the withdrawal. One internal solution for us for withdrawals is what we call evidence-based prosecution. This is where we proceed with a case where we have sufficient evidence, even if you don't want. Because the constitutionally, unfortunately, we have the mandate to prosecute. Yes, the withdrawal is done at the discretion of the DPP when you ask for it, but the mandate to prosecute is still with the DPP. So if she wants to proceed, if we want to proceed, we'll still go ahead
with enough evidence.
And a classic example is, I'm sure there was a case in Copperbelt of ladies that indecently assaulted each other. And the victim ran away. But we still proceeded because we had video evidence, etc. And they were convicted. So if we have sufficient evidence, we'll still proceed.
Absolutely.
Because criminal justice is about deterring. The next person should say, I shouldn't do that. Because I might go into jail.
Laws do put us all in order.
So for that. For ourselves, we have been embarked on a very aggressive program within the NPA. First of all, even the specialization of the GBCD. Under that, we have been educating ourselves, even through stakeholders. We've had external trainers coming on to teach us skills in GBV, cybercrime, and also sensitivity prosecutions. We have also learned a lot of medical stuff. You can say that.
Something that you thought was not in your field.
So now we are a bit more even
holistic.
When we understand, like, if this is what they're complaining of, you know that this is probably defilement. So we've been quite aggressive in our trainings, and we're also doing a lot of standardization in the way we prosecute matters. We don't want it to be personal, because Warrior prosecutes in a sensitive way, and then Bob prosecutes in a less sensitive way. So Warrior should only be the one prosecuting. There should be one standard for everyone. And to this end, we are about to publish, I think, what is known as the Prosecutor's Handbook on Sexual Violence.
That's wonderful. On sexual violence, that's really good.
So it's going to be given to every prosecutor across the country. There's about over 400 prosecutors across the country. They'll be able to refer to it in court. They'll be able to learn tips and tricks on how to deal with victims and witnesses. That everybody will have that standard information.
Yeah.
So at least we believe we're quite aggressive on that front, and we're already resolving there. I don't know what other problem was the investigative. Investigative is a tricky one because we are not investigators.
Yeah.
But what we do is we do help guide the investigations in the right direction.
Absolutely.
So when we see that there's a lapse or something that is missing from the investigation, we take it upon and say, no, officer, you've forgotten this.
Yeah.
You need to get this and go and get that.
Yeah.
And then that is the way we intervene. So now we do prosecutor-led investigation. We're still testing out the way it works, but when the case is reported, the officer, the investigator, and the prosecutor are working side by side.
Okay.
That way, the prosecutor knows what he wants for court, and the investigator knows how to get what the prosecutor wants.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a much quicker way. So at least there are
it
some
already sounds like you're
interventions.
doing so much, and other than scaring us in court, you're doing so much already in engaging us, so that we know that you're not here to scare the victims.
No, that's what we're here. We're here to scare the perpetrators.
In a good way. In a good way. Thank you so much, Bob, for guiding us through the legal frameworks of GBV and already what is in existence and some of the things that we might have not known before meeting you. So thank you once again for taking the time to join us through. And we hope our viewers managed to learn one or two things from this conversation that we've had. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah. And thank you to all the viewers. Also remember to report GBV. Yeah. And not to feel shy about it. It happens to everybody. Yeah. And it can happen to everybody. So otherwise.
And we're here to help.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right.
Natwampane,
ay 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 ay, tuvwange,
ay 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 ay, natwampane,
ay 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 ay.